So tell us how growing up during the Cold War influenced your writing of this book.
Well, let me go back to grade school, and it's a faint memory, but there was always a feeling that America and Russia would be in a nuclear war. And we actually had nuclear war practices. As silly as it may seem, we would be taken into the hallway and we'd get up against the wall, sit down, and put our head between our knees. So, looking back on it, it may seem funny and ridiculous. That would never have protected us against an atomic bomb. But that's what they did in those days. And we didn't understand anything about Russia. And Russia was very, very closed off to the West. And there was very little information coming out of Russia. So my father, who was born in Ukraine in 1909, came to America. He wound up in Georgia, went to Emory Law School. Uh, great American, believed in America, would not speak about Russia, neither would his friends. And so obviously there were very negative feelings about Russia. As you just mentioned, David, the Soviet Union collapsed in 1992, and we began to understand exactly what Winston Churchill had said. It's a puzzle wrapped in an enigma, and slowly we began to peel the onion and get to the middle of the onion. And this book is more of a culmination of my search for the truth about what are the Russians. They're white, just like we are. They have they believe in Russian, I suppose, Catholicism, Russian Orthodox religion. And what is it that has made them so different? Why are they different? What is the history of Russia? And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, what is described in this book is my effort to bring a complete reality to the reader. It's also a thriller, and the characters are very real. I've been to Russia, I've talked to officials in Russia. I don't claim to have the same knowledge and understanding of Russia as a Russian citizen. But let me just say this, Russia is not what we see in a James Bond film. And it's not the ongoing thriller, and the relations between the two countries are not that way. It's much deeper, and the division between Russia and the rest of the world is considerable, as we see. They have marched across Ukraine, and they have virtually destroyed large segments of Ukraine. And interestingly, the first one-third of my book begins with the infamous siege of Leningrad. Leningrad is now St. Petersburg. When the war began, when World War II began, Leningrad had over 2 million people. The Germans parked their armies about 20 miles away on a hill. They bombed the city without mercy, almost instantly destroyed the food warehouses. That winter, the greatest freeze in Russian history occurred. By the end of the war, there were only 600,000 surviving people in that city. My book begins there. That's where the characters meet. My lead character is Vitaly Solzhenitsyn, who is a Jew. But the interesting thing is that in that era, all religions were prohibited in the Soviet Union, and all books and literature about religions were prohibited. And Jews, as well as Muslims and other minorities, knew very little about their past and their history, and they could not really understand why they were being persecuted. The book, at about page 100, goes back to Moscow. Moscow is a city that is not in shambles, but is in a terrible condition following the war. Joseph Stalin is in power, and I mention this because so many people today really don't know about Stalin, who was one of the great killers of all time. It said that
Yes.
he murdered as many as 30 million Russians to achieve his goals. Great murderer. Fortunately, died in 1953. The country has had slow progress.